we paired it with explaining why she was making this change. So that if anyone looked at her resume and was like, this is kind of odd, like I wonder why this person's applying to this position. Just be yourself in the interview process, in the application process. You're going to land better opportunities that fit better with your personality, and you're going to, just feel more like yourself when you're being yourself, and you're going to feel more comfortable with being your leader as well. For me, I had 32 jobs in 15 years, really trying to figure that out. I was like, okay, I got to find out what this one thing is for me. And when I finally came to accept, that's not me, I'm never gonna have just one thing that I'm working on, that's when I really started to thrive in my career.
Pivot in your confidence, career, and compensation with the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast every Monday and Thursday. Now get ready for a special interview curated just for you. Welcome back to the 5-Minute Career Hack Podcast, where we help individuals and organizations pivot in their confidence, career, and compensation. And if you have not already subscribed to the podcast, or if you're not following us on all audio platforms, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button and turn on those notifications so that you don't miss the amazing guests that we have every Monday on the show. And today is nothing short of that. We have the incredible Steph Gillies on our podcast today of the Destination Dream Job podcast and career coaching company. Welcome to the podcast, Steph. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
So my first question for you today, Steph, is what is a generalist?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's so many people out there who identify as generalists in their career. And so some of you might be wondering, is that me? Am I someone who might identify as a generalist? And so someone who's a generalist, typically when they get into new positions, they take on a lot of different roles. So in other words that people have been called are jack of all trades, a multi-passionate professional, a renaissance person. So someone who just has a lot of different passions and maybe are not particularly drawn to one area or one industry or one job, but instead is able to use their diverse skill sets and really impact an organization by providing a multitude and a variety of skills.
So my next question was going to be what's a specialist, but I know my audience is really, really sharp and they can decipher and kind of compare and contrast what a generalist versus a specialist is. But I'd love to kind of talk about the norms in society as well as in the workplace around how a generalist is received in the career space. How are you seeing that with your clients that are generalists and what you've seen over your coaching career? How are they received?
Yeah, so we really do live in a specialist world, right? Like a lot of, positions are posted. There's very rarely ever a position posted for a generalist or something like that. The positions are all very specialized. I don't know about you, but when I was in high school and, early years of college, I was encouraged to pick a major, pick one direction that I would graduate from school, and then I would spend the rest of my life in that one direction. And so, we're really focused on, you know, creating specialists in our world, but there are so many of us, and a lot of us do end up being entrepreneurs, but there are a lot of us who are, don't have that one passion, and we don't feel like we fit in this world because we just don't want to do one thing for the rest of our lives. For me, I had 32 jobs in 15 years, really trying to figure that out. I was like, okay, I got to find out what this one thing is for me. And when I finally came to accept, that's not me, I'm never going to have just one thing that I'm working on, that's when I really started to thrive in my career and, and in my business. And I think that, I've helped a lot of people who are generalists, and it can be really tough, especially in the job market when hiring managers are looking for specialists. And so the really big important thing for generalists is to make sure that whatever they're applying for, they're speaking to what the hiring manager wants to see. So even if you have a multitude of skills, you want to focus on whatever skills that hiring manager is looking for when you are applying to a specific position. And so that can be really helpful, especially right now in the very competitive market that we're in.
So I think it's so interesting, and I'm so happy that you shared that you had 32 jobs. And what was the time frame again?
15 years, yeah.
In 15 years. So first and foremost, if you're out there and you have more than that quote unquote 12 to 15 already in your career, you're not alone. So that's the first thing. A lot of our coaching, regardless of what we focus on, is about letting people know that you're not alone in whatever journey that you're in. There, I promise you, there's someone else going through something that maybe not exactly like you, but close enough to where you can actually lean on that information and their experience and exposure to be able to craft your career blueprint. So I thought that thank you for sharing that and not feeling a way about it, because a lot of people, again, that's why I asked the question, how is that being received in the career in the workplace? And a lot of people would, maybe frown upon that long ago, but I think everyone being unique has a place. That's my 100% belief. You were born unique and you have a place and you have a purpose in this world. So the work that you're doing is phenomenal because it's work that I'm not personally doing, right? And so you're exposing me to a lot as a coach as well, because I was trained the same way. Pick a major, and I struggled with it. That's why I was so excited to do this interview. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. So I took the first year, thankfully, of undergraduate, and I didn't declare my major. I did all my general studies at the time, which probably saved me and my parents a ton of money versus declaring a major and then ultimately changing that major and spending more time in my undergraduate work. Do you find a lot of your clients have that similar story where they, ended up choosing the major versus trying to figure out maybe what they might have wanted to do? Do you have some people that are out there? Because I know there's some students that are watching as well.
I've worked with a lot of people a little further on in their career, but
Okay.
what I've found, just to encourage people who are in college or university, is whatever you graduate with is not going to impact the rest of your life, unlike what everyone tells us. I've worked with people in all sorts of industries who have degrees in very random things, and it hasn't really impacted their career at all. And you'd actually be surprised by the number of executive, like C-suite resumes that I've written with no education section at all. They never graduated university, they never graduated college. They just have, some after, some training that they've done through their career, but that's it. And it's just, the world is changing in terms of how they view education, especially in more forward-thinking organizations. So the education part of, your, whatever you decide to do in university or college is not as important and as, our parents might tell us or as the college community tells us. And so, you can adjust and you can change your career at any point in your life. And, there's always the opportunity to go back to school later in life if that's something that you want to
That's great advice, and thank you for taking the time to share that. I know you're, like you said, a little bit further on as well as we are, but we do get a lot of college students, and my advice is always just take your time and take. There's so many general studies courses that you have to take anyway to complete your degree, even if it's a semester, 2, 3, maybe. Just do that until you figure out at least what you want to major in. And one of my co-founders and I were having a conversation the other day. Throughout our career, we was like, no one ever asked us what our GPA was or anything like that as a part of the hiring process. And while I'm not saying those things aren't important to my college students, no one's ever asked about those things, nor has it disqualified me with I have 2 marketing degrees, and it never disqualified me from operations roles, from merchandising roles, and beyond. So I think that's super important. Thank you for sharing that. So as we move to understanding this generalist a little bit better, so that hopefully if there's someone listening, they can say, okay, maybe that's who I am, right? So what's the value of being a generalist in the workplace today?
Yeah, I think that every team should have a generalist on their team and in leadership because generalists really bring that unique perspective. So, people who are generalists can work across many different industries and many different positions. And what they do when they come into an organization is they bring that innovation. They might have worked in one industry and they learned a certain way of doing it. Then they move into the other industry and they're like, hey, why aren't we doing things this way? Because it worked over here. And so it gives the, companies an opportunity to try new things that are really going to help them, improve their processes, enhance their bottom line, do all the things that companies really enjoy doing. And honestly, if a hiring manager truly looks at their team, I'm pretty sure they can all find at least one generalist because they're the person you go to when you're like, hey, I have this random task. I wonder who would
Yeah.
take it on. they go to the generalist and they don't necessarily notice that that person is a generalist, possibly because they're in a specific position. But I hear time and time again from the generalists I talk to, I'm always, I come into a role as a project manager and then I end up doing like a million different things, or whatever they come into the role as. And, if that's you, if that's someone, that you're doing a lot of different positions, that typically means that you're probably a generalist and you have a lot of transferable skills, which means that your career prospects are a lot wider than other people
Mm.
who are specialists, right? So you have a lot more opportunities out there. A lot of my clients have, multiple career paths that they could take once they're looking for that career change. And so we often have to create them a job search strategy around more than one position because they
Mm.
want to, try their hand at applying for multiple different positions rather than just staying in whatever they've been doing for the past 5 to 10 years.
I think that's so good what you said there because the value is that you have the ability to change lanes or have your lanes overlap at any point in time in your career. And we consistently, myself and my co founders, remind ourselves of all the work that we've done because we've been generalists our entire career. Now, for the most part, our job titles have centered around operations in retail management, right? However, in operations, in retail management, when you are leading the massive teams that we've led, there's an HR function, there's a compliance function. There's so many different functions that we end up being responsible for, logistics, you name it, finance. The list goes on and on. And we have to sometimes remind ourselves that I've done this before. I was doing a podcast on LinkedIn not too long ago, and the person that was on was rattling off all these software systems that were being used in the workplace. And it's been some years since I've been in the workplace. And I was like, man, I've used that software heavily and totally forgot about it. It was like 3 or 4 different software systems. So I think that's so important. I think your value goes up tremendously. Not to say that specialists don't have value, but I think your value, and to your point, your prospects go up tremendously. So the multi-passionate person has a place, and it's actually a pretty cool place in my opinion. And I'm biased because I'm in that space, right? And ends up being an entrepreneur. I love that you said that as well. But you definitely have a space here if you're listening. So, what are the general steps to helping someone that may have already started their career, because that's the bulk of our audience, that started their career in one direction and is now looking to pivot? What are some of those steps that you would walk someone through that's a generalist to help them with their job search strategy or their career strategy moving forward?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the first thing to do is to do a lot of research into this new career that you're looking to move into, assuming you know which direction you want to go. And by doing research, what I mean is reading job descriptions and really understanding what this position is looking for. Because the job description is your hint into what the hiring manager wants from you. And so that's where you're going to start to see, if you review 5 project management job descriptions, you're going to start to see similarities and themes throughout those job postings with skills that they're looking for and different things like that. And that's how you know where to focus your resume and your cover letter. And so you really want to speak directly to those hiring managers and speak directly to those skills. So I'll give you an example. I worked with a client who was a director in a bank, and her goal was to transition into the nonprofit world as a director in some sort of fundraising or something like that. And she had been applying for 8 months with a resume that looked just like a banking resume, right? She went through her like 20 years of banking experience and she hadn't got any callbacks, which isn't surprising because a hiring manager on the other end would look at it and be like, why would we call you? And so what we did was we completely revamped her resume. We actually put her banking experience at the bottom of the resume and we put all of her community development at the top. So she had done a lot of
Mm.
volunteering, a lot of, board memberships that she was on where she spearheaded fundraising. And we really focused on that. And then even in her work experience, instead of focusing on like the day-to-day director of a bank, we focused on the community development work that she did. The programs that she started, the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that she initiated within her employees and different things like that so that it really showcased that community work. And then in the cover letter, we paired it with explaining why she was making this change. So that if anyone looked at her resume and was like, that's kind of odd, like, I wonder why this person's applying to this position, they could look at her cover letter and they could get the full story of why she was making this change and, what was her goal of her career going forward. And she ended up landing a community development role within 2 months of using this new format with the resume and cover letter paired together, and just being able to show that value. And it also includes, like, adjusting your language. So, at the bank, they talk a lot about revenue, but in nonprofit, they talk more about funding or stakeholders,
Right.
or so just making sure that you're matching that language with, the industry that you're applying to, and then really just focusing your resume and your cover letter on your transferable skills. You don't need to include everything, just include the things that the hiring manager would be looking for specifically for this position.
That's awesome. And so, from a statistics standpoint, and this will lead to my next question after that, for hiring managers, recruiters, what have you, how long are they, looking at a resume before they're putting it in the pass pile, right? What's the most recent statistics that you've heard as far as the time that they actually sit and look at a resume before either they're going to pass on you quickly or keep reading?
Yeah, so the stat there is 6 seconds. So you have
Mm.
a very, very short amount of time to make an impact. I was talking to a recruiter the other day who was like, it's so hard looking at so many resumes that look the same. He's like, sometimes if someone just wrote
Someone
pick
just
me
wrote,
at the top, I'd probably interview them. So that I don't recommend writing
right.
pick me at the top of your resume, but that goes to show that uniqueness and breaking the
Mm.
rules and doing what you need to do to showcase your authenticity in your personal brand is really what's going to set you apart, especially in a crowded market.
That's good. 6 seconds is not a lot of time. And as you were describing this kind of transformation that you made with this person's resume and their experience, and how you flipped their experience so that it really was tailored and customized for that role in the community space, I, it immediately made me think, like, if you don't get it done quick, and I didn't know it had gotten down to 6 seconds. That's why I asked the expert, but 6 seconds is not a lot of time, and to your point, the pick me at the top, our brains are wired as human beings for novelty, so we're looking for new, we're looking for unique, and it's a lot of what I coach on a LinkedIn profile, for example. What makes you, you, is what actually is going to help you stand out, right? So, I think that's so important, and sometimes it's the monotony of the same style of resume, and I'm not a proponent of doing anything that's too exotic, but I believe that whatever you do with the way you type your name at the top and that intro statement, and by you moving the community stuff to the very top of the resume, that hiring manager, you solve their problem, right? And I think that's the framework I try to put all our clients in, is how are you going to help them solve their problems? Because that's what they're looking to do. So if you're a recruiter, you got 20, 30 recs that you got to fill by Friday. How are you going to help them solve their problem? If it's the hiring manager, they want their job to be easier. They probably have an opening or are about to have an opening. How are you going to solve their problem? And that's what you were able to do by customizing and tailoring that resume to that job description. So 6 seconds. If you didn't write that down, you got 6 seconds to tell them who you are, your narrative, and your career story, that's specific to that job. So that's incredible. We started with research the job so that you can figure out, like, those job descriptions, are there pieces of it as a generalist that really light you up, and then we move to tailoring and customizing that resume to that job description so that the recruiter or hiring manager can jump on that. Okay, so they get the job now they're a generalist, they're probably the odd man out. Is there any advice you would give to that person once they're in the role?
Yeah, I think, especially at the very beginning, it's really important to, just have that growth mindset and really take everything in. As generalists, we can have a lot of really good ideas, and our ideas can sometimes come fast and furious. So we just want to share our ideas with everybody. But I encourage people to just take some time and learn about the organization and learn about what they're about and kind of just get a good grasp on the company. And then once you have that grasp, then you can start to see which of your ideas are going to fit in with the company culture, with the company goals. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't write all your ideas down. There's a book called Refuse to Choose by Barbara Sher. And she talks about how we, like as generalists, should have a list somewhere, a notebook or a notepad on your phone, and just write down all of our ideas because we come up with a lot of ideas all the time, but not all of them are, useful or things that we're going to act on. And so, especially at those beginning stages, it's really your time to learn about the company. But keep notes of all your ideas so that as you have time to implement or as you know more about the organization and feel comfortable sharing those ideas, you have them there for you and you can see whether or not they might fit with the organization.
That's incredible advice. I wish I'd had that in my early 20s. Because that's part of the generalist thing is that you can see things from different angles and different perspectives all at the same time that would be amazing in roles that you may not have a specialty in or the education or degree or experience in, but you're able to see. You may not be able to get kick the ball all the way down the field to get it done, but you have the vision to be able to see it. So that's incredible advice. So keep a journal for sure. And then you've got this incredible job search toolkit that can help walk somebody through this process. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, a lot of people just aren't sure which direction to take their career. As I'm sure you've encountered as well, that career clarity can be a really big challenge. And so the job search toolkit takes you from that start to finish for people who maybe can't afford a coach or just want to do it on their own. And so it has a career clarity portion where you kind of look into building a career that fits into your life goals, not just a
Mm.
career just to get you through or whatever. It's about fitting into your life and making sure that you're creating a life that you're excited about. And then it moves into a job search strategy. So, thinking about who you can reach out to, what that networking strategy can look like as part of your job search. And then it talks. There's a section about the personal branding, so writing your resume and cover letter, and then a LinkedIn tool as well, because a LinkedIn is vital to the job search process, as well as a super useful networking tool that is included. And then I include resume templates as well that are applicant tracking system friendly. So when you are writing your resume, you can just go ahead and use one of those templates and feel comfortable knowing that your resume is applicant tracking system friendly.
So this is the DIY kit, if you will, for the job search, right? For the generalists and frankly for just about everybody. Let's be clear. I know we're talking about the generalists today, but the specialists could absolutely benefit from this if they're not getting the responses. I'm coaching a few people, and number one, I've got to dispel the narrative that they've created in their head that I don't have enough experience or I need more of X. And my first question is, who told you that? Did you actually get that feedback? And 9 times out of 10, they weren't given that feedback. And so I get over that hump, and now we've got to talk through, well, it's either in the resume if you're not getting the call initially, or it's in the interview process that you're not able to tell your career story to match up with what they're looking for from a hiring standpoint. So those are the two steps. So this job search toolkit to me helps to solve that entry point to get the first call and be able to then just reiterate that story, bring that story to life in person, whether that's virtual interview or in person interview. So this is an incredible resource that I hope the audience is listening to and will tap into. We'll make sure we leave a link for that in the show notes. And then you've also got a podcast, the Destination Dream Job podcast. So tell us about the podcast and what's your goal and mission there for your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hit episode 52, so it's
Congrats.
officially been a year. So, yeah, but my goal there is just to help people in the job search process. We really focus on helping people, focus on their authenticity, and I call it designing a career you love because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have your passion has to become your career. I don't necessarily even believe in a dream job necessarily. I believe more in a dream life and whether your
That's
job
good.
fits into that or not. And so I think that, on the podcast, I have a lot of great guests. I'm looking forward to welcoming you as well in a few weeks.
Yes.
And, we talk all about the job search process, what it's like for generalists and job search strategies. I just had a recruiter on who shared all the background on recruitment. And I'm launching an episode next week from someone who specializes in salary negotiation and how it's not just about, the dollars per hour. It's also about negotiating, your compensation plan and your time off and different things like that. So it's lots of really great, guests who bring a lot of really great expertise.
That's awesome. So, man, I truly appreciate you taking the time to share with our audience today because to me, and when we talked prior to the show, I really felt like this is a true niche that is being underserved and not talked about enough because it just doesn't fit in our education system and the way we're taught and the way we're brought up to get into our career. Yet, there's so many people that are struggling with burnout because they're not doing the thing that they love. And I love how you said the job fits into the dream life. I think that's so key. And what you're sharing allows people to identify those things and find a safe path forward. Because oftentimes, why we don't go is because we don't see a way. And you're providing a way through your coaching, through your podcast, as well as the job search toolkit. So we really appreciate you sharing with our audience so that those that are generalists like myself have a place to land. It really helped me to feel even better. I felt great about who I am and what I've done in my career and why I made the choices that I make. But having some context and some words and some language to use makes me feel even better about it so that I can talk to more people about it and use myself as an example with the language that's appropriate. So, thank you so much for sharing with the audience. And we always like to end with having our guests share their final 5 words. So I know somebody's having to rewind and catch some of the things that you said about how they tailor their resume and things of that nature. But if they could just remember 5 words that you could share with them, what would those 5 words be for you?
Oh man, 5. I can think of doing it in just 2. It would be yourself. Be yourself. Be yourself. So many people, come to me with this whole personal branding and they're like, "Okay, I need to do this and this and this or I need to make it sound this way." But the resumes is the personal branding that stands out is when you're yourself. So just be
Mm.
yourself in the interview process, in the application process. You're going to land better opportunities that fit better with your personality and you're going to, just feel more like yourself when you're being yourself and you're going to feel more comfortable within your career as well.
Oh, that's phenomenal. It honestly, there's so much I could say there, but we don't have enough time today. So, as Steph said, be yourself. Thanks for being on the show today. Again, we appreciate you. To everyone listening, be sure to subscribe, hit those notifications, turn those on so that you know when we have another amazing guest like Steph Gillies. And until next time, I love you and we'll see you soon. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed doing it for you. However, it doesn't have to end there. Come on over to our Facebook group community right now. You're going to get exclusive content that we weren't able to include in this episode as well as past episodes. We've got challenges, we've got research, we've got lives, you name it, all for you in bite-sized chunks so that you can continue this development journey. Go ahead, click the link right now in the description show notes, and we'll see you there.